today I'm going to continue going through the OA episode by episode and writing down notes that I took from each show and putting it in the truth, inconclusive, or lies category. And just in case I have not said it before, truth means that it's something that comes off very genuine and as something that OA could not have made up. Inconclusive means I don't know what to do with that detail, or it just doesn't fit nicely into either category, and lies are the things that I can pick apart and say this doesn't make sense to me and I don't believe it because of blank. So I'm going to put some notes in the inconclusive category in the middle because OA went to the other dimension again, and there's some weird stuff going on over there that I'm not completely sure what to do with. In this episode, OA has another near-death experience. She goes off to the other side and she eats the parakeet and decides to come back. But I noticed that the Arabic woman who's in the other dimension, she looks like she has Braille printed out on her face, and that's really odd. I don't know what to do with that. Maybe if there's a season 2, that'll be a useful detail, but I don't read in Braille, so if anybody knows what her face possibly says, I'd love to know in the comments. Then Katoon says that OA is the original, and I assume that that is implied to mean the original angel since that is what OA stands for. But how could she possibly be the original? Because one, we already have Katoon there who seems to have angel wings herself, and two, in a later episode when they've got Evelyn and they're healing her, she says that when she was a small child she drowned and ate a moth. So technically that puts the sheriff's wife Evelyn in that same category of angel as well, and she would have been in that position much longer than OA has been. And now in the super long lies column, I'm going to put in number 51, where OA tells the group of 5 that she gave up eternity with her father for people she barely knew. Why? It seems to be suggested that by that point OA is not in love with Homer, and she has no reason to be attached to anybody else in the group, really. So other than using that in her story as a moment to show how selfless she is, there's really no plausible reason that she should stay behind because she doesn't owe these other people anything. Oh, and another interesting tidbit that I know, because I have people in my family who are Muslim, I always feel like I'm saying, oh, I know this because of this person in my family or because of that person in my family. I do have like a huge family. My mom was one of 12. So I have a lot of personal experience with a lot of different people and backgrounds and jobs and religions. But the Muslim culture does not believe that angels have free will. And to me, that is an important detail because when I put on the subtitles to watch the OA the second time through, it says over and over again that Katoon is speaking in Arabic. So in my mind, that is a heavy suggestion that Katoon is or would have been Muslim. So the whole thing of having OA choose whether she's going to stay with her father or whether she's going to eat the bird and go back to the real world, it really gets a monkey wrench thrown in it if you understand anything about other religions of the world. And I guess you could argue that Katoon doesn't have to be Muslim, and that is true, but then why not cast the character as Asian and have some ancient mystic Chinese monk type of person? So I'm gonna dig my heels in here and be an a-hole and say because Katoon speaks Arabic, it strongly implies that she is Muslim. Then we see Mrs. Broderick Allen get really emotional about her brother to OA. And she says that they were twins and she broke the connection. And you can see that she feels really bad about that. And that's a very true, genuine moment. But I put it in the lies category because I think it really fuels the whole idea I've been suggesting that all of the group of 5 that she's interacting with in the current day real world suburbs, they're all these people from really sad, broken circumstances, and they're desperately looking for something to cling on to. And if you notice in that scene where Broderick Allen starts speaking with OA, OA doesn't say anything definitive. She doesn't say anything to let her know, oh yes, I'm supernatural and I know this happened to him or whatever. She says nothing really comforting. She just listens to her. But having someone listen to you, having someone feel like they care about you, it's a very strong bonding tool, and especially if you're somebody that doesn't have anything else, it can suck you up easily into whatever delusions someone whips up around you. Because the more personally invested you get in the OA, the more you are going to believe her story. Now onto the truth side. Number 14, we see what looks like an FBI agent jogging by while it's still dark out next to Broderick Allen's car when she's next to the drug house. And it's really the earpiece with the curly string that kind of gives that away. And I don't have an answer for that. It's definitely a detail I missed the first time through. I actually missed it again the second time through, and my husband had to tell me, hey, that's an FBI earpiece. But what I'm not sure about is if it's someone impersonating the FBI or if the FBI just wants them to be very aware that they're being watched. Because it looks like the agent is supposed to be undercover, but then why have that earpiece? They have much smaller things they could use. And I mean, it's the FBI. They could put whole headphones on him with a normal cord and it not look suspicious at all. But it is something, it did happen. It happened in front of us in real time, quote unquote, as the viewers. And it's not something that OA told us about. So we see this happen. Back to reasons to suspect OA's lying, I put down Jesse's mom committed suicide and he has no dad around. He took off. And this is really the most we get to see of Jesse and his personal life. But again, it proves, just like the others, Jesse has a messed up personal life and he would desperately cling on to anything that came along. These are the same types of people that a cult leader would target because they have nothing else. And then because the people in the group of 5 really have no one else in their lives to depend on, they start bonding. And their only common factor to having a relationship is the OA. And because they're starting to bond and create this makeshift family, this support system that they all desperately need, psychologically that will start making them militantly defend OA and everything she says and everything she does. Because now their whole personal life that has improved is only getting better because of her. It reminds me of a quote from Sucker Punch, where they say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And none of the members of the group of 5 had anything to stand for in their lives. Back to the truth column, the FBI counselor tells OA that he does know in a way what she went through and that he knows there were others and that she thinks talking about them will get them killed. And I feel like the real truth that we dig out of OA is when other people are corroborating what she said. And because this is an FBI counselor who deals with a countless number of victims, I believe the counselor says these things because it is a common factor that people in that position act that way. But then her story starts to get really interesting. The scene where OA is walking into the drug house to continue her story, and the group of 5 is already upstairs and she can hear them on the stairway, and she stops and she listens. And she's hearing this conversation of how some of them are getting very skeptical of her. And if you notice, a few minutes later when OA is talking about Scott, and when it seems like all the other captives are believing that OA might really be this angel figure coming back from the other side with information how to escape, Scott starts making the logical but skeptical argument that OA just got hit in the head hard. And we know that Scott is eventually converted into OA-ism, for lack of a better term. But isn't that something? Isn't that really, really convenient that her story has a skeptic, just as she finds out that the group of 5 have some skeptics in them? Because even though the group of 5 have been researching OA's story during the daytime, OA doesn't know this. So that was the first time she heard that she was being unbelievable. So she adjusted her story accordingly to show, no, look, this is so much more real because here's a skeptic too. And look, he's going to get converted too if you just hang on. Another super interesting thing that I noticed that is going in the lies column, when Hap got out his heart monitor and he says, I'm going to ask you questions and I can tell if you're lying by your heart rate. OA's heart rate stays consistent until she's asked if she was there alone. And then she says, no, my father was there, and she gets really upset without having to divulge any information about Katoon. And even though this is part of the story that OA is telling us, so we don't know if it's true, we don't know what details may be fabricated, she's obviously explained to the others that she's passed this heart rate test. Yet, in a later episode, when Hap does his near-death test on her and doesn't give her any of the gas first, her heart rate also stays the same right up until the end where her body is dying. Compare that to when Homer first went underwater and his heart rate went nuts to where Hap stopped the machine and gassed him. But OA, without the gas, was able to still control her heartbeat and keep it calm. And that is really important because if you have that kind of control over your heart rate in a stressful situation, you can make stuff up to the point where you could beat a lie detector test knowing that you're lying. Which goes back to a point that I made in an earlier video that I don't think OA is crazy, because if she were crazy, she'd be singing about her angelhood loud and proud to everyone. She would have no concept that it sounded nuts because it would be her truth. I think she's just lying and she's made up this world that she's survived through. Now here is the biggest point that people argued with me over and over again in my theory, and I'm going to take 1,000% credit that I did a crap job of explaining it. When I was recording my notes, I skipped a huge paragraph that covered this, and so that's my fault, that's my bad, but I'm going to debunk it right now. OA talks about the gas that Hap uses and how it made them be compliant against their will. And you can see the group of 5 get kind of hyped up about it, and they're saying how they've all heard of this gas and it's called devil's breath. And French specifically knows that it's called scopolamine. Now here's the kicker. It is true that there is a lot of information out there that says scopolamine is a knockout gas. It's kind of like a date rape gas. But it's been proven over and over again that that is a common misconception. It's an urban legend. It's something that if you were trying to research and find a thing that would fit in with what you're talking about, like making you do things against your will, and you can find plenty of information that says scopolamine will make you into a puppet. So someone doing half-baked research on the internet trying to fill in gaps for their story might put that down, not knowing any better and not having any time to fully research it. So the fact that they mention scopolamine by name, so because OA agrees by omission, she doesn't say, oh, I don't know, or oh no, that couldn't be it. I have no idea what devil's breath or scopolamine is. She's letting the group of 5 feel like, oh my gosh, we know what this is because we've all heard of it before, and make her story sound more credible because they've heard of it before, but it doesn't do what they think it does. Which shows to me, without a doubt, that she has made that whole part of her story up, which I feel would say that there was no research going on. She was just trying to make her time in captivity seem more important than it really was. Then OA talks about how she and Rachel started sucking the gas out of Homer's cage so that he could stay conscious and try to have an awake near-death experience. And this was another detail, like I couldn't figure out what I was looking at the screen, and my husband had to tell me because it just didn't make sense to me. But alright, I can buy that OA and Rachel sucked out enough gas that Homer wasn't fully affected. But one, doesn't Hap see this on the recordings that he has constantly got going on 24/7 of the captives? Of all the times he's pumped the gas, he's never, ever, ever seen them do this or noticed them do this. And alright, you can argue that he's not in front of the computer, so he's not seeing it happen, and maybe it's not recording, which I really doubt because he's so meticulous at what he's doing. Why wouldn't he record what's going on? But the real kicker is they said they did this for like 3 years. And you're telling me that Hap never found it suspicious that every time he went to get a knocked out Homer, there was a knocked out OA and a knocked out Rachel when that was not the case and they knew how to block out the vents before? You're telling me somebody as suspicious and anal as Hap didn't catch on to this? Up to the inconclusive column, just because I don't know what else to do with this information. When Homer is able to get into Hap's research area, he finds this tape, and on it we hear maybe someone else, maybe the same guy say, "Your name is not Homer." Now that part I have no explanation for. I don't know what's going on there. If it wasn't for the fact that OA was telling us about it, I would put it in the truth category. Now, I didn't put it in the lie category, and I have done that with a number of other details that OA has mentioned that she has no way to know. But given the relationship that OA said she had with Homer, I think he would come back and tell her everything. So I don't think that's necessarily a lie, but what is said on that tape really chills me. Because to say, "Do you know Dr. Roberts?" that makes you assume that Dr. Roberts is Hap. But what really freaks me out about that is that the name OA searches for in the first episode is Homer Roberts. Now, I did try to look it up to be certain, and it says that Hap's name was actually Hunter Percy. But what other doctor could they possibly be talking about? And if his name is not actually Homer, then how is it that OA searched for Homer Roberts and got a video of the Homer she's supposedly talking about? And there's just something about that tape that is so violent and scary and just anxiety riddled. I don't know what to make of that, so I'm just going to keep this an inconclusive until I can maybe figure it out later. Now, maybe, that last point is because Hap says he is mapping the soundscapes of NDEs. Because when we do finally see Homer's near-death experience world, it's all white. It's very different from what OA saw. And there were people chasing Homer down. And I don't understand what that was about at all, because nothing I can put together makes any sense for that situation. Why would OA's other side be this peaceful heaven, starry place, or the landscape of the field, and Homer's is stuck in this office-like building with people trying to chase him down and scare the crap out of him? Now back over to our lovely lies column for number 60. OA's story gives us a little taste of where she's kind of contradictory and where she kind of doesn't know what she's doing and figuring it out along the way. Because she said something like, oh, I heard them say away, or they called me away, but I'm really thinking now that it means OA. And because that old Arabic gypsy lady called me the original, I'm going to decide that that means I'm the original angel. That really comes across to me as someone who has been so mentally deprived for so long that their brain is starving to do something and they're making connections out of anything. And that kind of defines her whole captivity experience, in my opinion, is that she's sort of making meaning out of something that's not necessarily there. But now back to the middle column, where Homer starts sleep shaking into his movements. And again, because that is part of OA's story, I don't really know what to make of it. It doesn't really prove truth or lie, either way you want to take it. The worst I can really call it is very convenient for that moment in the plot. And that's all I've got on episode 4. 4 more to go, but the notes seem to get a little bit shorter each episode. So if you're still with me, leave me a comment, because I'd love to know if anybody's watching these. I'm kind of committed to finishing. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed enough to like, subscribe, and share this video. I've also got a lot of other videos on my channel that you are fully encouraged to go check out. Plus, you can find me on Facebook at Say Halo Goodbye, which is my gamer tag, or Twitter at _Fanily.